I'm sorry, like everyone's outside. We're just asking them to come inside, and it's going to take a minute. Yeah. Turn my eyes. We're about to begin. You can share your screen now. The keynote speech is about to begin. Please be seated. Thank you. Welcome back. Please turn off your phone to silent mode. In this hour, Dr. Manhães will deliver the last keynote speech for our conference. Let's welcome our moderator of this keynote speech, Professor Xu.
I think I just restated it. All right. Okay. Here our distinguished guests and all our attendants. In this session, we have Dr. My Eyes. Is that correct? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. My Eyes. He is service design director, I think. Okay, at the Jewish Financial Corporation. But before that, he was a professor in Savannah University, Savannah College for many years. Okay,
Yeah.
and yeah, I just curious why he switched from academic to practical area. But I think we can have the answer later. Okay, and so he teach service design in the Savannah University College. Okay, and he received a PhD degree with knowledge management. Okay.
Yes.
So this expertise and skill is change management, according to the LinkedIn. Okay. So I think he is a very, I think, knowledgeable academic researcher and also practitioner. And today he's going to talk about the metaverse and the financial literacy. I think this is a very interesting and very serious issues to us. Okay, and let's use our big hand to welcome Dr. My Eyes.
Thank you. Thank you. First, Dr. Xu, thank you very much for this invitation. It's an honor to be able to discuss the subject with your audience and participants. So, and just for knowledge or awareness, it's 10:15 here in Savannah, Georgia, PM. And as an old man, I'm about to go to bed. So if I sound a little bit sleepy, please forgive me. But without further ado, let's start. And I expect to be able to discuss and explore what I'm about to show in more details through conversations. First, let me just briefly explain what I'm about to do here. So I work, as Professor Shu mentioned, at Truist. Truist is the 6th largest bank in the US. We have 55,000 employees, 20,000 temp workers, 15 million clients, and I worked at the Innovation Technology Center. So this is the place I work. And I'm involved in many efforts around innovation at Truist. As you might expect, given my position, this sentence here at the bottom means a lot. So for me to be able to be talking with you today, presenting what I'm going to present, I have to go through a very heavy review process in terms of avoiding proprietary information, finding something interesting that we can share without compromising any efforts that we are investing or developing. And just to respond to your initial question, Dr. Shu, about why I left SCAD, is because the invitation that I got was irrefusable. Right? The invitation I had was to come and actually work in very sensitive topics and inside the bank. So there's very little that I can share at this moment, at least. And since I'm always involved in innovation efforts inside the bank, most of the time I can't talk much, right? But I will show you one specific step that we use making the connection that Dr. Shu mentioned between research, academic research, and practice. Right? I guess it would be very interesting for your audience for us to discuss how we can pair these two approaches very well inside a bank like Truist. Okay, so just as a disclaimer, the views expressed here are my own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Truist or its affiliates. Okay, but that's we will go through how do we internally tap into opportunity spaces, and I hope it will be interesting for you to know how we do this. Explain a little bit what we define as Metaverse, the opportunity space, how financial literacy enters into this space, how visual cognition, and what would be the next steps. Okay? So first, a little bit of my background, sorry. So as I mentioned, I worked at Truist. I've been the the global leader of an academic group connected to the Service Design Network in Germany. I got my PhD in knowledge management, as Dr. Shu mentioned, at the University Federal Santa Catarina in Brazil. I'm from Brazil. And the Köln International School of Design. I've been, until last year, so I joined Truist in December last year. I was the grad coordinator of the Service Design program at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. And I had to leave work. Leave work is the pioneer in service design consultancy, right? The first consultancy that had this, presented itself like a service design consultancy. And I had to leave to join the bank. But while I was at SCAD, I was working at both. So the initial exploration, and I have to say, when I got the invite from Dr. Shu to talk about meta service and financial services as a broad term, of course, knowing that I will not be able to share anything that we are actually working, what was my almost the only perspective that I can share is how do we define an opportunity space, right? If we are at the bank and someone comes with an idea or a hint that something is worth investigating, how do we do this, right? So we, as I said, scientists usually seem to refer to research gaps the same way that companies refer to innovation opportunities. So we started to tinker how to approach these two gaps in a same way, borrowing from academia, a more rigorous approach, structured, and that's an example. So I applied what we do at the very, very beginning of any innovation idea. I applied specifically for this conference under the theme Metaverse and Financial Services. Okay? And I had to navigate to not mention anything that we are doing. But that's what I'm going to try to explain to you. So, in a nutshell, this is the opportunity gap technique, right? We establish a source, very much systemic literature review, right? In this case, I use Google Scholar, open source, right? Open, there's no, so everything that you're seeing here is publicly available. Paywall, no, nothing. And the process basically defines a few keywords. In our case here was Metaverse and financial services with a date, right? The very same way that we do literature review. So I arbitrarily defined this 5-year time frame between 2018 and today. Google a keyword, the two main keywords, and then you start to combine those keywords with others until you get to 0 or very few results, right? We might discuss like how this becomes actually a description, a feature, or a description of a product. But in a nutshell is this. So you start combining trying to find places that or combinations of keywords that no one or very few people are writing about, but backed up by a large body of literature, right? So if you think financial services is in this Google search, Google Scholar, 5-year period, there were published 2 million papers that mention the word, the combination financial services, right? It comes on all sizes and sorts. And of course, you have to mine them and actually figure out how many meaningful for this the goal, this opportunity space, right? And you can clearly start to see it creates a map of where there's nothing happening or very few things happening when you start to combine. We usually go to, I don't know, 60, 80 combinations, right, in the matrix, and you can clearly see gaps in the, when you put it all together, you can see kind of a map with hills and valleys, right? And you start to create a narrative of why those gaps are here, why these combinations are not well researched. And again, you will see that when you start to focus on metaverse, how metaverse and the combination of all them, how this ranking builds up, right? This is a very good example. When you put financial education and financial literacy together, financial literacy drops, goes like 15,000 publication, which means this is in terms of product development is understood as like you need to have. If you're talking, let's say, if financial education was a product, you would have to have financial literacy embedded on this, right? And we've done this in several situations, and consistently you can see a very interesting map of, oh, I'm not developing anything in financial literacy because there's already 15,000 papers on this, right? So I'm not wasting my time. I'm just grabbing that knowledge that is there already, embedding in the product as a standard, right? And other things start to show more interesting combinations. Well, visual cognition and financial education, just 3 are mentioning this combination, right? But what's in there? So far, so good. So based on this ranking, we actually can describe a product. In this case, it's a hypothetical product that would be this presentation, right? So metaverse and financial literacy, and then we are exploring opportunity space for financial education, right? That goes to financial service governance logic, and then opportunity space becomes a cluster. And on the other side, visual cognition, and we discovered the visual cognition aspect through this search, right? We initially didn't set out to tap into visual cognition, but seeing that this keyword is low in academic production hints to, well, this is an open space that we can explore. Make sense so far? So let's see how it goes, right? If we were talking about a product, imagine you have two new technology that you don't know exactly what it is. Let's pretend we don't know anything about metaverse. So through this literature review, we educate ourselves about some technology or feature or knowledge itself, right? So we know by just checking those most cited papers, the most recent ones, you can kind of craft a first frame for that feature or for that aspect or that product, right? So we know that, imagine that we had never heard about metaverse, right? It's a new thing, and you can construct a very consistent description like here, see here, oops, synthetic environment linked to the physical world was mentioned for the first time in 1992, has been called many different, had different names, so you were able to get a perspective on the history of that technology, of the term or concept, and a virtual environment blending physical and digital. Okay, so we're starting to understand what is metaverse. The evolution, it seems that this concept of metaverse has 3 steps, or 3 phases, right? The first one would be to copy, mirror, what they call digital twins into the metaverse, right? So actually copies of what exists physically. At the same time, you're creating things that only exist inside the metaverse. And the actual metaverse would be when we connect the two, right? Imagine you never heard about metaverse. From this very clear and known academic process of academic literature review or systematic literature review, you get a very good level of confidence. Okay, I understand this in a very low cost approach, right? So we understood that there are 3 phases. You can explore in more details, and that's when you start to see in the demands that we have from leadership or even the market, and it helps you focus where to dive. But the goal here was to present this. Oh, okay, so there's a step to adopt this technology that we need to copy everything first that exists, have a digital twin, create things that are only digital. And once we connect the two, we have the metaverse. So only then we would be talking actually about the metaverse. So it needs to be shared. Whatever metaverse that we're creating, if it's a product, it needs to be shared, persistent, and decentralized. I don't know. Of course, I'm talking about a hypothetical case, right? But when you're dealing with the process itself, it's very clarifying to be able to really, at low cost and in an effective way, get this level of knowledge for free, technically, right? Tapping into thousands and thousands of researchers in the world. So it's a very, and I'm talking from a bank perspective, it's a very cost-effective way and very nimble and flexible. You can adjust without much cost, and the final report is very consistent, right? We're not guessing anything. Here are aspects that should be taken into account if you are thinking about developing a product like this, right? And of course, there's many different levels of how deep you can dive into each one of these aspects, but it needs to be multisensory, connecting digital objects and people can bodily interact with them, right? Enable seamless embody experience, real time and dynamic. You get to know that, oh, there are factors on the client side that we need to pay attention and specifically connected. I guess I reviewed for this specific presentation around 80 to 100 papers. So I cherry picked some that were kind of representative of these clusters. And here saying that personal innovativeness, right? The feeling that you're comfortable with new things is a major factor for whatever solution connected to new technology like Metaverse would be important to measure, assess, and then their perceived ease of use, right? How effortless this new technology or product could be, and perceived usefulness, right? Okay, it's easy to use, but I can't do anything with it. So it's a triangulation that helps very much the development process. Right? And then things more nuanced like this. Are we seeing the metaverse as a tool? So the goal is to do something else with the metaverse, or we are thinking about something that is connected with the metaverse itself, right? Nothing will come out of this or will have no impact on the real world. So we would prefer one that would use metaverse as a tool. And then the opportunity space, and I included the opportunity space just to give a perspective of how this process happened. So opportunity space, right, is the understanding that there are time-specific conditions, region-specific, and individual conditions that need to meet or to overlap in a way to really represent an opportunity space. Structural preconditions, and of course, this content I'm more familiar with, right? Like we are somehow familiar with Metaverse, but imagine that we are actually tapping into something that no one in the organization knows. Right? So there is space, leadership. This kind of explains my role at the bank, right? Establish this opportunity space where you have to take into account several conditions to see if this is an opportunity space or not, right? And it's kind of more neutral. We're not committed to this, and this the usefulness of this systematic literature review, because there's no commitment until we see a better picture or consistent report if this is something that it's feasible, right, for us to embrace. And then we can discuss a little bit more, but the architecture, actors, activities, and aftershocks. What are the potential impacts that this might have beyond the goal of creating the product or selling, but will there be any aftershocks on this? So far, so good. So the process that I'm showing is one of the tools that we use to delineate what's possible, right? It's a high-level strategic examination, and that's why I said that it's interesting, because it's cost-effective, very solid process that might lead to a new product or receive investment from the company. But at first, the opportunity space is very neutral, right? I mean, we're not defending or promoting or advocating the adoption of anything. This is a very down-to-earth analysis of an opportunity space. Okay. So financial education, right? At first was financial services. Then during this process, it went financial service and metaverse are, I don't know how many thousands of papers written. It goes down when you try to find the gap. It goes to financial education, and actually, when you focus a little bit more to find spaces that are untapped, we end up getting to financial literacy, right? Imagine you have to explain to leadership why we went from financial services to literacy, and the numbers that you get and the logic of the process becomes very self-explanatory, right? There's an understanding that, just to put it too simply, right? Financial education teaches the value of money, and financial literacy is more connected to an investment perspective, right? It's the calculate interest, like if I invest 10, how much do I get back? And again, these papers seem to imply that financial education does not yield the same result into a sound financial decision as financial literacy, right? So internally, I would be explaining, hey, so that's it's better for us to start tapping into financial literacy as a way to get to financial services. Okay, and again, especially when you think about the U.S. market, this is a NAC 2015 data. But it's corroborated by more recent papers saying that when you submit the US population financial literacy tests, usually only 30% of the population has the basic knowledge on financial literacy, right? Which, based on the brief review that was done, shows that leads to bad judgment in terms of money behavior. And then how visual cognition came to be, right? So financial services, financial education, financial literacy, and then from a keyword in one of these papers, the possibility of visual cognition showed up. And again, very interesting especially from a design perspective, I thought it was interesting having landed in the visual cognition and financial literacy and financial education, right? So this is just to make a point that how strong it is, our visual cues, right, to enable us to understand the world around. From the visual cognition, in the same process of literature review, right, you understand that if you use familiar objects, if you relate whatever you're presenting to what they call real world regularities, people have less cognitive load to understand a new concept, right? So incorporating visual learning, active learning. So you start to, when you get to this end of the funnel, it becomes very clear to see connections, right? You have to active learning, and we just mentioned that Metaverse is a place that you can embody interactions with virtual and real world objects, right? And enable several interactions. So you can do this in multiple opportunities. You understand that visual presentation of concepts actually drive different behaviors from investors, right? So the importance of perceived risk or becomes clear for the person that is seeing this through visual. Again, imagine you're designing a feature of a product and you start to see those connections and points that you need to hit to create the best product ever, right? Or the best possible product, right? So you understand that better performance perceptual text for regularly positioned objects. And just to explain, again, imagine we never heard about this, right? So, okay, visual memory, working memory is what enables us to read, right? You need to keep things in your head, the letters, right, or text, or to assemble parts of things. You make this say, you manipulate those informations in a visual form in your head. This can lead to several interesting developments, right? So space might be foundation for working memory, emphasizing the importance of spatial structure. And here is just an example, right? People were moved. So before investing, if you have a chance to show that experiments run throughout the world by highly skilled scientists, right, connect to what you're trying to achieve, right? They showing that when people are presented this type of representation here, they make better decisions on how to invest, right? So they understand that they shouldn't put all their eggs in the same basket, for instance. Very simple concept. Right? Or compound effects, right? We don't have that. I stop here, but anyway, it's I guess it's common knowledge that people usually don't understand that if they roll their balance, their credit card balance, this has a compound effect that usually people can't perceive very much, right? Again, this could be a feature or an aspect of the product. And then we do this, kind of create a map of what we need to tap, what was like, what is already taken as a standard. We don't have to waste our time investing in this, just tap into the knowledge that is there. And if we need to allocate resources, we tend to allocate in these gaps, and that will yield somehow an advantage, a distinctive product. So once it's done, then we start to explore, okay, what can we do with this, right? So, okay, just a few slides ago, I was talking about how do you teach. It needs to be active, constructive, intentional, authentic. Oh, okay, this could be used to simulate investment plans, right? Through using real world regularities, right? How can we plan investments based on a metaphor of the real world? And of course, you start to see, oh, people already are doing this, right? There are explorations giving this type of compound effects through time, how this, and how can we tap into these experiences that people have in the real world and bring this as not as a creative or out of the blue idea, but as a very precise chirurgical procedure of, oh, okay, so we can couple use the real world as a metaphor for financial planning, right? Regularities associated. So we see this, but until, at least until I did this experiment, this hypothetical investigation, I never have had before connected these graphics that we see so much and so often in the financial sector with this experience that we have in the real world, and how this relates to us, right? So a first idea would be, oh, so I can create kind of a space where I can navigate. I have different ways of navigating this space and see how the space reacts to whatever decision I make in terms of investment, right? So real world regularities are associated with more efficient learning. How can we connect this with financial literacy? And at some point, under the umbrella of a financial service. Okay? And then things start to make sense. Oh, there seems so there is already this kind of environment working. People know this. Is what is missing is just a connection between the landscape and the financial plan, right? And how can we visualize and let, I don't know, a client see their financial plan like if it was a virtual city, right? So you have a building that is taller because you're channeling deposits to that kind of investment. But if you take away what happens, the investment that you have for like a city, right? Places of pleasure, place of work, place of investment, and it would not look like a city map or a virtual city, but it would feel like all the real world regularities would be embedded in a financial graphic, but it would feel to you and would have the reactions of the real world as you interact with it, right? So this is just a first step. Oh my God. So that's the first step. This would be kind of a, as I mentioned in the opportunity space, high level strategic description of a potential product, leaving or providing pathways. So if we, as an organization, decided to go in that direction, everything we need to know, it's already mapped. Right? Oh, but what, I don't know, what can visual communication bring to visual learning and visual cognition? My goodness, just between 2018 and 2020, there are 21,000 papers on this, right? And these are the ones I'm referring here from a set of 100, I guess, 80 or 100 papers. And you can structure them like going back to my PhD in knowledge management. Right? You can navigate those papers and knowledge in a very precise and trustworthy way. That's it. I'm more than happy to answer questions if there are.
Wow, that's really nice. Okay. My first question is, it lists a lot of reference, right? Is that possible we can get your PowerPoint because it contains a lot of information in it and it's very interesting and we'd like to explore the detail. All right. Is that possible? Yes.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
All right. Okay. Now let's take questions. Anyone would like to ask any question to Dr. Manhães? Yes. You can just click on yes.
Hello, Dr. Manhães. I think it yeah, a very interesting approach. I mean, to find opportunity space, but before getting the opportunity space, it seems we need to foresee the potential future, as you just mentioned. So I wonder, how do you foresee or forecast the future, the potential future, before you deal with the opportunity space?
Awesome. That's, I guess I can come back here. And you understand. So we, from this technique, and of course, just to be clear, right? I created this example specifically for our discussion today. So we're not committed with anything that is I'm being saying here, right? It's just an example. But in terms of forecasting, and especially in a bank, right? We play by this rule. So we are not interested in the big one that will be the future leader or the future product, the blockbuster product. We want to invest in many small bets, right? And that's the efficiency and effectiveness of this approach. It's simple in, I don't know, 2 days. you can have a sense if this idea is something that can be taken further, or you can just present to the. I had the opportunity to do this, like, hey, this is just buzzwords. All the consistent and trustworthy research that we've done tell us don't go there, right? One detail that is interesting is when we tapped into, sorry for being fast here, but the discussion we had, we can have based on the cluster that was talking about this. So the whole thing needs to be effortless. It needs to be perceived as useful, right? So while I was reading these clusters of papers, Facebook fired, or Meta fired 11,000 people, right? And they're based on this kind of the clusters of papers here only, you would, oh, oh, so it's not, that's, oh, there's something that is not quite right yet for Metaverse, right? And I've had in real situations, people being very thankful. So, okay, thank you. No, so no, let's put this aside and don't put money there. Let's not bet on this, at least for now, right? So it's a very fundamental question that you asked, and it's kind of the reason why this nimble and very we can say, right, scientific and intelligent approach, recognizing that there are a vast universe of knowledge available, especially through internet access, right? And you can really be more effective on deciding where to invest. But just to wrap, we're not betting on any kind of blockbuster. We want to bet small, like put eggs in several baskets, but not randomly, not because someone is this a good basket to put our eggs on it, and then this kind of approach, very academic, very scientific in a way. Usually in organizations, they tend to say, oh, we are far ahead of the academic world. And I had the chance to several times to prove no. These people are 20 years ahead. And what we're doing here is we're lagging behind. So there's a very sweet taste on showing, hey, be more respectful. And I'm not mentioning choice specifically, right? I've been working as a consultant for many years, and I've heard this kind of, oh, these academic people, and it has a sweet taste to show that academic people can provide very. We went to the moon because academic people, right? So it's not a question. It's more like a way that organizations react to be what they don't know.
So, all right, thank you, Dr. Manhães. And the next question, okay, we have two more questions. All right, so one is from our president. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Manhães, for your sharing. I'm just curious about perhaps you can share us your thought because under the metaverse, that, many of the business models are being changed, and that change could be it will be a huge change. For example, the currency system, particularly in the banking industry. People are looking for new way for the so-called cash inflow or cash outflow. So we heard a kind of approach or kind of mechanism popular, for example, like NFT, solo. So we would, but again, there's a very new innovative way
Yeah.
for business. But still, some of the governments are debating about how to set up a proper regulation or even no regulation at all. So, which is kind of one hand is regulatory, the other is innovation, innovativeness.
Mhm.
I just want to want you to share with us your thought on how to balance these two and how to get the best benefit for us in order to jump into the metaverse, this area, because blue ocean, area. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, awesome question. I will not be able to talk much. Uh, but in terms of Bitcoin, e-wallet, like e-currency, right? Cryptocurrencies. I guess what I can and what I can say is people need or want to have the ability to transact, to make traceless transactions, right? What the money, the bill, the cash does, it enables me to withdraw from my account and do whatever this I want to do with this money. And no one will ever know what I did with this money. Okay, the cash, the physical, right? There is people. So in terms of a potential opportunity, would be how to enable the regular, and that might be the breaking point. The day that someone like me, that I don't know anything how to establish a key, right, a Bitcoin key by myself, that only person that I paid through this keychain and I will know each other, the day that I'm able to do this by myself, like I have cash, there will be no money, physical money. Right? Until then, until then, we will still have physical payments. Because, does it make sense?
Yeah, I understand that basically there's a lot of evolving what we see in the next few years, in order to having a more clear perspective, and so get the benefit
Yeah,
for all the stakeholders. Yeah.
yeah. The aspect that is delaying the death of physical cash is the need that humans still have to run some transactions that are traceless. And it's not like a very high level thing, right? So, oh, I want to buy some things that I would prefer not to have associated with my name, right? And it's a very ordinary situation, but it's across the population. And no matter how we should have abandoned already cash, right? And it feels like that it's people say, oh, because older people tend to are used to cash, or low income people need cash. That's not the whole picture, at least from what I see. And again, I'm talking any shape and form. This does not represent truest thought, right?
Hey,
I'm
and that nice. The last question will come from an old friend. Okay, that will be Antonio.
First, Antonio, we always I mean, at one point we in the real world because we always meet like through internet calls and all that. But I finally came here, so glad that we are in the same conference, even if remotely. Thank you very much for your presentation. I mean, my question actually is a step back. So on your previous point of academic approach and framework applied to strategy of the pink generation, in this case, no case in a big corporation, like as consultants, we always, talk leadership and we kind of, bring design to organization with approaches that are very different from the academic one. So my question is like, how does this approach land in an organization like yours? Probably it was already like a very welcoming territory for you to introduce those techniques, but generally that's not the case. As a consultant, I can say if I
yeah.
and say, hey, okay, I'm gonna bring you like this academic framework, like the exact reason why I hire you is not to to use academic approaches. So
Yeah.
I wonder if you have some insights, some experience on how to kind of have this conversation with organizations that might not appreciate the very rigorous and structured approach of
Yeah.
academia.
Yeah. First, Antonio, so nice to see you and see you in Taiwan. I wish I could have been there to visit such a beautiful country. But from a design perspective, um, like we are very disrespectful of boundaries, right? We take whatever we want. As a designer, you want to build something, you can borrow from, I don't know, woodworking and then combine with computer. That we're very all over the place, right? And in a good way, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. So why not lean in the scientific field, right? As I mentioned, we went to the moon was not because other knowledge than the scientific knowledge, right? So, um, but I'm totally so from a design perspective, it's very comfortable, right? Oh, we can prototype something out of the blue, very improvisational, right? Or we can follow a very draconian and very predictable and controllable step by step. We, as designers, we don't have any discrimination against knowledge, right? But yes, you see in organizations this kind of, which is uh, strange, right? My goodness, how? Well, anyway, I'm not. Let's not go there. But having this experience, right? I have a PhD, worked in all my life in IT and organizations. So I try as much as I can to combine this and translate. I love languages. I speak 6 different languages, and I think it's another language. It's like, okay, I have a language here, so the academia gives me this, but there's so much I can push about this. So how can we translate this to leaders, decision makers in organization? And again, and it goes the other way around, right? When I'm with my academic hat and with my academic fellows, I hear almost the same thing said about people in organizations. So there are two amazing groups of people that should talk to each other more, right? So I'm agreeing and completely subscribing to what you said. But I think both groups are making a really, really awful, painful mistake, right? They're missing this junction, this connection. Not easy. It's not easy, right? You have to be very proficient in both sides to make this translation. But it's fascinating.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Manhães. All right. Okay. I think on behalf of the society, our president of the Society of Service Science would like to present some gifts to Dr. Manhães. Okay. And I mean, so you will see in Metaverse. I'm not just kidding. Okay, it's not physically now, but we will deliver it to your home later. All right. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Honor. An
Yes.
honor. Thank you.
For appreciation plaque. Our appreciation plaque for you give us the keynote speech at this conference. Yeah. We also have some other more tokens. Let me just show you one by one. In the box here is a tea. Is a local tea farmer. They grow. So hope you enjoy it. It's one of the very good tea that is from my perspective.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And the second one here is also from local brewer. Is a rice wine. Okay, it's a local.
Wow.
So, right, so that's indicating we are in this conference, we are in the global reach, but the local connect. So hopefully we're able to establish some collaboration in the near future. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is SDG products is also from a local farmer. You can put on your dining table, and then you can remember that we all strive for the ESG, for the sustainable environment. Thank you.
Oh,
All
thank
right.
you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Very honored to be talking with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Miles. Okay, I think last time we met in Toronto, and hopefully we can meet very soon. Okay, in the SPA meeting. All right, again, let's use your big hand to thank Dr. Miles. Dr. Miles, please still connected. We need to take a picture. Right. Okay. Would you please stop sharing your
Oh,
PowerPoint?
yeah.
Yeah, so that we can have your, you know.锁定这个那个所有的人可以大家往中间移吗？两边的，这样我们才可以拍到所有的人。不好意思，请大家往中间移动。哎，
滑动全荧幕可以吗？
就只要他就好，可以。不行，哦，最上面。
它的布局只能这样，是不是？
他真的只能这样，他还
这个嘞，这个嘞，这个在那边。没有，他这样子，
你就这样，不然等下有问题。
这样就好了，这样已经很大。
上厕所了。
对。要好。
来，那个大家口罩可以先拿下来。
好。好了吗？好，3、2、1，好，换个姿势。3、2、1，好 ，OK。
OK。
请他比个赞。
So Dr. Miles, can you also do the thumb up, thumbs up? Okay, yes.
好，3、2、1，好，OK。Thank you。
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right. Okay. I'll see you somewhere sometime. Okay.
Thank you, Maurício.
Thank you both. Yeah, thank you both for your speech. That's very wonderful. I got several research ideas from your speech. Okay. Because we have a device for the metaverse and, you know, learning, visual, risk, literacy. Yes, I do have some idea now in my mind. All right. Okay.
Awesome.
Hey, when we meet each other, I will share the result with you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
可以讲，这样，
可以，那可以小姐。
讲中文。
等一下忘了跟大家讲。
讲中文。
大家就是我们等一下会去西子湾大楼那边吃饭，所以可以外面会有人带队让大家去行政大楼，所以就跟着。我们有派学校的。